You don't admit it out loud, but the fear lives under everything you do. It moves quietly, like a weight you pretend you don't feel. You worry that one day the world will continue without even a trace of you, and the hardest part is how familiar that already feels. Chapter 1. The Shape of the Fear. There is a moment you don't talk about, the moment when you realize how replaceable you are. It doesn't happen all at once. It comes from small things that should mean nothing but never do. You see how quickly people move on, how even deep connections fade when time does what it always does. You tell yourself you shouldn't care, but you do, because you want your presence to matter in a way that lasts longer than a few memories. The fear doesn't show up as panic. It shows up as a quiet ache, a sense that you could disappear and nothing would shift. No echo, no mark, just an empty space that closes too easily. You don't want glory, you don't want a legacy carved into stone. You just want to feel like your existence isn't something that dissolves the moment you look away. But the world has a way of teaching you otherwise. It teaches you that attention is fragile, affection is conditional, people remember what serves them, and when you are no longer useful, you slip out of their focus without resistance. You try to dismiss it, you try to call it a phase, but the truth settles deeper. You feel the fear not because you want validation, but because you want to feel real. You want something to prove that you were here in a way that mattered to someone. And the more you search for that proof, the more you see how temporary everything is. There are nights when you sit with that thought longer than you should. Nights when you feel the distance between who you are and how you're remembered. You wonder if anyone ever sees you clearly. Not the performance, not the mask, just the quiet presence that exists behind your eyes. The fear grows in that gap, not loudly, just steadily. Chapter 2. The Weight of Your Own Silence. There are parts of you no one has ever known, not because you hide them, but because no one ever asked. People assume you are fine. They assume you don't need to be understood. They assume you don't feel the same things they do. You learn to keep your thoughts inside, not out of strength, but out of habit. You speak less. You share less. You let the silence do the work for you. But silence has a cost. The more you keep inside, the easier it becomes to believe that none of it matters. Your feelings fade without expression. Your experiences drift without witness. And a life without witness begins to feel like a life that could disappear without consequence. You tell yourself that solitude is natural. You tell yourself that you've adapted. But in the quiet, the fear grows sharper. It tells you that you are not someone people carry with them. You are someone they forget when you're not standing in front of them. It's a hard truth to confront, not because it's dramatic, but because it's plausible. You remember times when you reached out and felt the delay, times when you tried to connect and felt the distance. People returned messages late, or not at all. They showed interest only when convenient. Their memory of you was selective and thin. You start to wonder if you ever mattered as much as you thought, not out of self-pity, just out of clarity. Human nature is simple. People hold on to what is loud and urgent. You are neither. Your presence is steady, calm, controlled, and the world does not remember what it does not find loud. As you sit with that truth, you feel a pull inside you, a sense that something is slipping. Not your identity, just your place. The subtle space you thought you occupied in the minds of others. You realize how fragile that space really is. Chapter 3. The Echo That Doesn't Return. You've spent years trying to build something that would last, not a reputation, not an image, just a connection that feels grounded and real. Something that doesn't vanish the moment life shifts direction. But people drift. You've seen it too many times. You watch someone fade out of your life and you accept it with quiet resignation. You tell yourself it's normal. You tell yourself it's the way things are. But each departure leaves a mark you don't acknowledge. There is a specific pain in being forgotten by someone you still remember. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's a slow sting. A realization that your presence didn't leave a strong enough impression to stay. You try to convince yourself that it shouldn't matter, but the truth is simple. You remember people deeply. You carry them. You hold moments with a kind of quiet weight. And when you realize that most people don't hold you the same way, the imbalance feels stark. You replay certain conversations. You think about moments that felt important to you. Then you imagine how easily the other person might have forgotten them. It feels like losing something that never had enough time to exist fully. The fear grows strongest when you think about the future. You picture yourself aging. You picture years passing, names slipping, faces fading. You picture younger people replacing you, filling spaces you used to stand in. You imagine becoming a memory that dissolves without resistance. It's not just the fear of being forgotten by others, it's the fear of being forgotten by time itself, of disappearing into routines and obligations and noise, of losing the parts of yourself that once felt sharp and alive. You sit with the awareness that nothing you build is immune to fading. Even the strongest connections weaken with distance. Even the deepest impact softens with time. And in that awareness, you feel a quiet truth settle in. You want to be remembered not for what you did, but for who you were when someone looked at you closely. You just don't know if anyone has looked at you that closely. Chapter 4. The Mirror You Avoid. There is a deeper layer to the fear, one you rarely acknowledge. It has less to do with other people and more to do with you. When you sit alone long enough, you realize that you don't fully see yourself either. You feel the distance inside your own identity. You feel how unclear your reflection becomes when you look past the surface. You realize how hard it is to know yourself without external anchors, without someone saying, "I see you," without someone holding on to the parts you struggle to hold yourself. You wonder if the fear of being forgotten is really the fear of not being fully known, because being known would give the world something to remember, and being unknown means disappearing without resistance. You look at your past and see gaps, moments when you shifted to fit the expectations of others, moments when you hid what felt real because you didn't want to be judged, moments when you showed the world a controlled version of yourself and kept the rest hidden. When you hide long enough, you start to fade from your own awareness. You become a version of yourself that is easy to overlook, not because you lack depth, but because you rarely show it. And the fear grows from that truth. You cannot expect others to remember what you haven't allowed them to see, but admitting that feels heavy. It forces you to look at the ways you abandoned your own presence long before anyone else did. It forces you to acknowledge that forgetting begins from the inside. You sit with that realization. It doesn't fix anything. It doesn't bring relief. It just brings clarity. A quiet understanding that the fear isn't only about the world, it's also about you. Chapter 5. The Quiet Truth You Carry. There is a moment when everything slows, not because you wanted it to, but because your mind can no longer outrun the truth. You understand now that being forgotten is not an event, it's a process, a slow drift, a quiet erosion, something that happens in small, unremarkable moments. You watch the world move. You see how fast people shift their focus. You see how quickly old memories lose their shape, and you accept with a heavy calm that nothing lasts as long as you want it to. But within that acceptance, something else appears. Not hope, not relief, just a grounded understanding. You won't be remembered by everyone. You won't be held in the minds of most people who pass through your life. Their memories will fade. Their focus will shift. Their lives will move them far away from yours. But what matters is quieter, smaller, more human. You leave traces in ways you don't see, in conversations that seemed ordinary, in moments that felt small but settled into someone's mind, in the way you carried yourself on days when you thought no one noticed. Someone did. Not many, not often, but enough. The fear doesn't disappear. It never will. It stays with you as a reminder of your need to feel real, to feel seen, to feel like your existence leaves some kind of imprint, however small. You sit with that truth in a calm, steady way. Not fighting it, not denying it, just holding it, because being forgotten is part of being human, and wanting to be remembered is too. You breathe into that understanding, slowly, quietly, seeing yourself with more clarity than before, realizing that even if the world forgets you, you don't have to forget yourself.